Good morning. Great to see so many people jumping in right at 10 o'clock Eastern European time. Hopefully some of you are also joining from outside Finland this morning. Looking great. I wish you've had a nice start to the day. Here in Finland, at least it's been a dark November morning, so as we are approaching the kind of polar night time of the year, I think we are entering a really important and topical theme for this morning's Auntie webinar. Looks like we have still people joining, but considering that we have a quite important topic with a lot of content this morning, I think we can get started, and then the latecomers, they join as they can. And of course, there will be the recording then shared of the webinar as well afterwards. Something I want to mention as well is that you are free to ask questions regarding the topic this morning, and we have the chat open, so feel free to use that and ask your questions there in written form, and then we can go over those together with Claire after the webinar. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Claire, one of our Auntie professionals, and she will be the host of this morning's webinar with the topic. Well, go on, Claire.
Thank you. So today we're going to be talking about sleep. Let me first very quickly introduce myself, because when I was rehearsing the presentation, I figured that it's probably going to take me longer. So not so much about me, except for maybe what might be interesting to know, that I have a lot of personal experience as well, not just working with my clients, but I have suffered great sleep problems. A couple of years ago, when my youngest was born and he was a crybaby, he wasn't able to sleep for months on end because he was always crying. And when that was actually over, I then had developed more of a sleep disorder. I got through it, and hopefully with the tips of today, you will get through it as well. Obviously, what is it that we're going to be doing? We're going to be talking about what sleep actually is and the importance of sleep. How can you influence your sleep and your recovery? What about thoughts and feelings and how to regulate them? Because actually that's a big part of what's going on when we have trouble sleeping. And the aim of this webinar is to increase the understanding of the effects of sleep, to increase our appreciation for sleep, although we probably really appreciated when we didn't have a good night's sleep. But I'm also going to provide you concrete ways to improve your sleep. So let's dive right into it. And let me start with a question. Maybe you can take a deep breath in and out. And I want to ask you, how are you feeling today? How rested do you feel? Maybe perhaps you feel really tired. So where is it that you are? What is your current state of alertness? Because usually we take it for granted that we're in some kind of permanent state of not being rested and having a constant fatigue. So do you really remember what it feels like to be properly rested? So maybe you want to take a note of that. Sleep affects us all, because we sleep approximately, or ideally even, about a third of our lives. And sleep is very important for our health, for our well-being. It affects our cognitive function, our mood, our physical well-being, and our health. So just a few hours of regular sleep deprivation can have serious effects on your health. We have researched this very thoroughly. So it can degenerate your immune system. It can double the risk of cancer. It increases the likelihood of memory problems. And in a short time, it actually also upsets your blood sugar levels, causing you to gain weight. And many of us, we are very, very aware of the importance of sleep. And we have experienced the effects of both a good and a bad night's sleep in our daily lives and our overall well-being. It's even so drastic that we have seen the time being spent on sleeping in industrialized countries. It has been dramatically lower than it has been centuries before. And so much so that the World Health Organization, WHO, they recommend 8 hours of sleep. We're now seeing evidence that women might actually need more, but we are recommending 8 hours right now. And only 2/3 of adults in developed countries do not get to sleep that recommended 8 hours. So it has become to a point where the WHO has identified sleep deprivation as a prevailing epidemic in industrialized countries. Sleep is often the first thing that we cut back on when we are short on time. And the funny thing is, when we are switching the seasons and we're switching the clocks, I mean, now lately we got an hour extra, which was lovely. But in the spring, when we have to sacrifice an hour, everyone gets really upset, right? But we do exactly the same for ourselves. So at night, when you're in bed and you're watching television or you're scrolling, or you decide to maybe finish that load of laundry or maybe even your work, then it's all of a sudden it has become okay to skip that hour, which is a strange thing. So maybe next time, put away the phone, put away the laundry, and just dedicate that hour to sleep. Because at night, I don't know about you, but I actually charge my phone at night. By the way, I keep it out of my bedroom, but I'll be talking about that a little later. But I charge my phone to 100%. So why shall I not give myself that same courtesy to be charged to 100% in the morning? And that leads me to the question, do we value our sleep enough? Do we really understand the importance of sleep? Because in the end, there is nothing that is not affected by sleep. Sleep is actually the most effective way that we have to keep our brains and our bodies functioning properly. So sleep-wake rhythm is regulated by two main factors. This is just a little bit of theory so that we can get into the exercises a little later in this webinar. It's affected by two main factors, one of which is the circadian rhythm. The other one is sleep pressure. Now, the circadian rhythm is like your internal clock, and it takes you about 24 hours, not completely, but about 24 hours to go through the entire clock. It tells us what time of the day we should sleep, but it actually also tells us why we should eat or when we should eat, when we actually go to the bathroom, all these kind of things. It fluctuates, it affects our mood, it affects our heart rate, it affects our metabolism, because it also affects our neural and hormonal functions. It affects our body temperature. These are all things that follow the circadian rhythm, and it is influenced by various external stimuli. The most important one is light, basically daylight, which is really difficult when you're in Finland, obviously, but still there are ways to kind of make sure that you get the effect of daylight, because our body, that circadian clock, takes the cue from the daylight to kind of reset itself every day that, oh, apparently now it's 9 a.m. in the morning. So light wakes us up while dark makes us tired. And we all live by the same 24-hour clock, right? Just the one that's hanging on the wall or that you see on your computer screen. But our own peaks and troughs actually do not coincide exactly with that 24-hour clock. So your circadian rhythm, your internal clock, is a little bit different than your neighbors or your partners or your coworkers, meaning that you might really like it early in the morning and get a lot of work done, while to maybe your neighbor, that is such a strange concept that you could actually get things done in the morning. The second thing that affects our sleep is the sleep pressure. And it's lovely that we have such a simple term for this, because basically what happens is once we wake up, the sleep pressure is at its lowest. And during the day, it starts to build up throughout the day. So the more we are awake, the more sleep pressure we will experience. And for most of us, again, for most of us, I'm generalizing here, the amount of sleep pressure increases so much that we can no longer stay awake. So that after 12 to 16 hours, we will have to go to sleep. Now, that sleep pressure can be very much prevented or disturbed by, for instance, caffeine, because that kind of messes with the signal that is sending to your brain, hey, it's time to actually go to sleep. It suppresses the sleep pressure. What is important to know is the structure of sleep. because very often we see sleep as the opposite of being awake, where we are kind of like, I don't know, passive and almost comatose. We just lie still and activity is almost at a standstill, but nothing is further from the truth than that. Sleep is a time when our mind, when our brain and our body are actually kind of alternating between active and passive. Sleep is actually a very active time in our lives, and a lot happens during it. Now, we can roughly divide our sleep in both REM stages and non-REM stages. REM is probably the most familiar to a lot of people. It's the time when we are dreaming. I'll get back into that. But the non-REM, that's when we're in light sleep, in deeper light sleep, or sometimes if you have a smartwatch, it might call it core sleep, and the deep sleep phase. So the N1, the light sleep, is the period after we are just falling asleep. It's the period when our body is trying to relax. It's also the period where you wake up because you feel that, ooh, I was falling, right? It's that kind of sleep. It takes a couple of minutes, and then after about 10 minutes, something like that, we fall into the N2. So that's a deeper light sleep. About half of our sleep is actually the N2 sleep. And that is where our muscles are starting to relax and our body temperature is actually dropping. The N3 sleep is where we move from light sleep into the really deep sleep phase. And that is when the electrical activity in our brain is at its lowest. This is especially important for recovery. This is the part that we call restorative sleep. And it can be very difficult and uncomfortable to wake up from. And this deep sleep phase lasts for about half an hour, and it accounts for 15 to 20 minutes of your total amount of sleep. Now, as I already said, a lot of people are familiar with the REM sleep. It's the time when we dream. It's actually also the time when our brain is actively organizing the day's event, kind of pruning what happened to us and also making sure that what happened during the day is being transferred to the long-term memory. The REM sleep is actually something that we see from the outside. That's why we call it the rapid eye movement. But it takes up about 20 to 25% of our sleep, with the majority of it towards the morning. Now, a regular sleep cycle is about 90 minutes long. Again, approximately, in general, on average. It might be a little bit different for you. And it always starts again from the very, very beginning. And you take about 4 to 6 cycles per night. Now, because it always starts from the very beginning, it is very normal to wake up a couple of times during the night. On average, we wake up 20 times during the night. However, we do not remember that. Only when we are awake for more than 15 minutes and we cannot fall back asleep, that's when it starts to become problematic. So why do we sleep? Just because it's such a lovely feeling, but it actually has a lot of functions for our body. Sleep has a restorative effect because during sleep, we replenish our energy and our body fights off illness, inflammation, and the stresses of waking life. Sleep is therefore very important for both physical and mental recovery. However, our brains and minds do not just rest. They do not shut down completely during the sleep, but the brain actually uses this time to sort the information and the experiences and events and the things that we've learned throughout the day. It has a major impact on your performance, on your alertness, the ability to process information and to solve problems. So that's why sleep also affects your emotional and your impulse control, your working memory. So that's the memory that we kind of use during the day in order to get the information back pretty quickly. Your reasoning, your time management, and your overall control and performance. So this is why it's so important for your mental resilience. Because if we are not alert and energetic, our minds will not be able to adapt and to be flexible and to resilient to whatever is happening throughout our day, right? Because so often we cannot predict what's going on. So the lack of sleep is also reflected in our emotions and our actions. And maybe you know from experience how a bad night's sleep affects your mood, how you might be a little bit cranky or frustrated. And that is easily being transmitted into our behavior and our social interactions. So we may be a little more tense than normal and easily irritated. Very often, when it comes to our well-being, we focus on exercising and healthy eating, which are really important when it comes to well-being. However, sleep is actually the mechanism that is supporting that. Did you know that if you do not sleep properly, our body actually starts to crave salt and fat, which obviously is not in the best interest of your mental health. So in order to support your well-being and to do the things that will support your well-being, it is important to get enough of the restorative sleep. So skimping out on sleep means that the days become a matter of simply getting through, and eventually we are too tired to move, to eat properly, and that way everything actually suffers. So, how to improve sleep? That's what you want to know. A lot of factors affect our sleep. Sometimes it is by conscious choice that we sleep too little. We are cutting back on sleep because we want more active hours in the day, whatever that might mean, right? So we need more time to get things done. And if we have done that, it might be that we are deliberately disturbing our own sleep. So how about you kind of influence yourself throughout the day and see if you're able to kind of improve on that sleep pressure, because a lack of sleep pressure can actually be because we have been too little awake, or that you might not be active enough during the day, that you might not be tired enough throughout, or actually in the evening. And the best way to experience that for a lot of people is on Sunday evening, because we had the weekend, we slept in, it felt luxurious, it was wonderful. We didn't do too much. Maybe we went for a hike, or maybe we went looking for mushrooms, but that was about everything that we did. And sure enough, by the time it's Sunday evening, you have difficulties falling asleep because you have to disturb that building up that sleep pressure, and you lie awake until Monday morning and you're like, oh, how can I do that presentation? Then obviously there are circadian rhythm fluctuations, but they might also come from poor sleep maintenance. So that is more about the irregularity of the rhythm of the day. As I just said, when you sleep in on the Sunday morning, it's really hard for you to kind of get back into the rhythm on Sunday evening. So that's why it's always so important. And you might have heard this all before, but that's why it's so important to always wake up at the same time. What about your lifestyle? Do you drink caffeine, or do you drink it too much maybe, or too late? There is a general guideline saying do not drink caffeine less than 10 hours before you go to bed. What about your state of arousal? So maybe you have really excited yourself a lot before going to bed. Maybe you've been working out, maybe you've been playing a video game, maybe you've been watching a really scary movie. So being that aroused is really, really difficult. What about eating too late? That interferes with that circadian rhythm. So if you interfere with the pattern of your meals, where one day you might have dinner at 5 p.m. and the other day at 10 p.m., it's going to be really hard to fall asleep. Obviously, there are intoxicants. I think a lot of people are familiar with alcohol. Some people even believe that it helps them fall asleep. And yes, it helps you fall asleep. However, it will wake you up after 6 hours because the effect is wearing off. Now, I will not go into other drugs, but believe me, they're not helping you. What about stress? How stressed do you actually feel when you go to bed? Do you take it into the night, or do you maybe feel stressed about your sleeping? The thing is, usually tiredness tells us when we need sleep. And when all is well, we sleep well at night and we feel energetic and refreshed during the day. But there are times and situations when that balance gets upset. And that what happens then is that tiredness and the ability to sleep then do not balance out. So then you might feel awake during the night and you might feel really sleepy during the day. This is actually a very common thing. You're not the only one going through it. And usually in general, these phases do not last too long and they will kind of balance themselves out. However, we know that a third of working age people suffer from recurrent temporary sleep-related challenges, and more than 10% of the population suffer from chronic sleep-related challenges. So if you feel that you might have a sleep disorder, or that your sleep is being affected by something that's going on just physically, because you are maybe going through menopause, because you might lack vitamins and minerals, go see your GP. Always go see your doctor to make sure that these are the things that you can rule out, and to also look for additional help. You don't have to do it alone, because adequate and good sleep are the basis of your own well-being. So the easiest way to improve your life is to invest in sleep and sleeping. So a good night's sleep actually starts with waking up. I know this sounds so counterintuitive, but it starts in the morning. So a regular circadian rhythm, pacing your day with meals, taking breaks at work, exercising, taking a break in the evening. These are all ways that a lot of people use to improve their sleep. So start with prioritizing your sleep. Value your sleep. Set enough time. Set aside enough time every day to get some sleep. So don't go running around and trying to get to sleep, but really prioritize your sleep. Avoid making schedules, by the way, because that is going to make you feel more stressed. Be consistent. As I already said, don't sleep in the weekends. I know it sounds so alluring because you already feel so tired, but it's actually messing up the rest of the week. So make sure, just for a couple of weeks maybe, to also in the weekends stick to that rhythm, see what it does to you. This is going to help you to regulate that circadian rhythm, your own internal clock, so that it knows, hey, do you know what? It's this time of the day, I'll go to sleep now. What about your sleep environment? Is it cool enough? Too warm actually messes with our sleep. The perfect temperature is 16 degrees Celsius. Is it silent enough? Is it dark enough? Because light wakes you up. That's the light from your phone, especially if it's the blue light, but it's also the light coming from outside. Now in Finland, luckily, that is not going to be a problem at the moment, but still there might be city lights shining in. So make sure that your room is dark enough. Now also make sure that your sleep environment is a cozy one where you can relax and where you actually do feel relaxed. So try to calm your bedroom. Obviously, smart devices, I don't think I have to tell you anything about that. The blue light, the simulation, not good for your sleep. Make sure that you put them away at least 1 hour, but preferably even longer before you go to bed. Now, don't tell me that you use it for an alarm. Go to IKEA, buy yourself an analog clock. It does actually an extra favor to you because it cancels out all the light in your bedroom. It doesn't make a noise. I know that. I have one. But that way you will not be lured into the addiction of the smart device. What about your activities during the day? Do you get enough activity in? Do you make yourself tired enough? Do you sit down the entire day? Do you take regular breaks? Do you get a workout? If you do, then make sure that it's not too late till the end of the evening. Calming your evening, setting yourself up with a lovely routine to calm yourself down throughout the evening. Maybe you want to drink a cup of tea, maybe you want to read something, listen to some beautiful music, whatever helps to calm your evening. And by that, you're actually also calming your mind. So make yourself a really relaxing ritual for your evenings. It is signaling to your body that, hey, it's time to go to sleep now. So I'm quite sure that everything that I just told you is pretty familiar to you. You're intelligent people. Otherwise, you wouldn't be sitting here and wanting to learn more about sleep. The challenge here is to actually start doing the things that you know are going to improve your sleep. So what is it that you need? I want you to take a moment and really think, what is the one thing that I'm going to implement tonight? Maybe you can let me know in the chat. I mean, I cannot read the chat right now, but I will once I stop sharing my presentation. But put it in the chat. Make sure that you do this for at least a couple of nights. And remember, this is a slow process because it is like training your muscle. This is training your sleep muscle. It's going to take you a little while before you actually see some definition. But if you do not start today, when will you start? Try out the first thing, see what it does for you. After a couple of days, you want to add maybe a second practice, but you're going to start with one thing. So thoughts and emotions, because I told you a lot about how it works physiologically, but also from a mental and emotional point of view. But it's very often the thoughts and emotions that are keeping us awake. So we may feel physically very tired, but once we go to bed, we wake up because we have a million thoughts in our head, which isn't strange, because we think about 60,000 thoughts a day on average. And for some people, they all tend to come out right before we want to go to bed. And these thoughts have a significant impact on us because they can increase our overstimulation and stress, and they can lower or raise our mood. In order to take care of your sleep, I want you to take a step back and get some distance from your thoughts, because that often helps to prevent the thoughts from taking over. And we all face various worries throughout life. They can be related to family, they can be related to work, health, money, relationship. And then on top of that, we start to worry about the night ahead. So maybe you have ever been in a situation where like, oh, I've had such a wonderful day and I feel so tired and I'm going to go to bed. And well, what came of it? A lovely night of sleep. While when you were like, oh, it's been such a hard day and I already feel so tired, and you will see that I will not be able to get some sleep, and sure enough, you will lie awake all night. So your thoughts are really, really important. Oh, sorry, skipping too far ahead of myself now. Your thoughts are actually heightening your emotions throughout the night, because when you wake up, life simply seems bigger. Your world is smaller, but your life seems bigger. And that means that that's an ideal time to start ruminating and to really start worrying. So if you take the time to acknowledge your feelings and your emotions, it's actually like pressing a ball in the water, right? It's a fun little game that you used to play when you were little, pressing the ball really deep down, and when you release it, it would come back splashing up. A lot of us do the same thing with our emotions, with our feelings. We push them down, we push them down, we push them down, and then at night, we have no other way than to release. But usually it's the mud that comes up then. So if we're able to work with these thoughts, if we're able to work with these emotions, we're going to have it easier during the night. So have you ever tried simply writing down, registering your emotions? If you have, then I love that. And maybe you have seen some of the common thought patterns. I hope you take a screenshot so that you can, or I think you're also able to look back at the presentation. But we have, in general, there are about 200 cognitive distortions. And a cognitive distortion is where the thoughts that we are thinking basically aren't completely true. But we tend to believe our own thoughts. And because we are thinking that what we believe is true, we are getting these really big emotions. If our thoughts are honest, our feelings are going to be honest, our behavior is going to be honest. But for a lot of us, our thoughts aren't completely honest, so our emotions aren't honest, and our sleep suffers because of it, not just our sleep, by the way. So if you're anxious, you don't think very logical, therefore you're not going to act very logical. Now, these 200 cognitive distortions, these are the ones that we maybe see most often. Planning thoughts is where you are thinking ahead, you're planning what is going to happen. By the way, they're all totally normal. There's nothing wrong with you if you do it. This is just what happens. Problem-solving thoughts, where you're thinking of a solution to a problem that hasn't been solved yet. Sleep thoughts, as I already said, what's going to happen tonight? Thinking about listening to the body, because at night, all of a sudden you can hear your heartbeat, or there is that little ache that you feel so much, and then you start to ruminate, and that is actually going to affect how alert you are. Mindless thinking, that's just where you're spinning and swirling around. What else? Thinking about what you heard. at night. So that's the bump in the night, right? Where you all of a sudden you hear something squeaking, or usually these are unfamiliar sounds when you're maybe staying in a hotel or something. But I actually wake up from the sound of my doorbell, which isn't really happening, but it is something that I wake up from. Generalization thinking, this is about negative generalization. So that's what, like, no one likes me because I'm always so tired and I can't do anything. This is where we use a lot of words like always, everything, all the time, never, every time, nothing, these kind of words. Black and white thinking, that's where you're only seeing the extremes and not the nuances that life's made out of. So I don't know, it's always raining outside. Exaggeration, that's where we tend to make our problems a lot bigger than they actually are. And we're actually invalidating our own ability to deal with them. Negative thinking, that's where we ignore the positive and we only focus on the negatives. And mind reading is where you think that you know what other people say, think, or believe. Now, the challenge here is to come up with positive and constructive thoughts that will make you feel better and will bring you and your mind together. Now, in order to do that, this exercise, the reason that I say this is the exercise, this is the most researched exercise in cognitive theories, and it is very, very widely used. I want you to set aside a calm time every day. Set an alarm on your phone as a reminder every day. Don't do it too close to bed. Do it maybe at 4 p.m. if that's a good day. But if you prefer to do it in the morning, then we'll always do it in the morning. Take a pen and paper. Really do this on paper and write down everything that's in your head, everything. So even when you're like, I think I might be empty now, that's a thought in itself. Write that down. And during that worry time, you're not going to reflect on it. You're simply going to write down your worry or your thought or your problem, and then you're going to proceed to the next one. Then once you're ready, this is the time where you get to reflect on your things. Why is it important to me? What happens if it comes true? How likely is it that worst case scenario will actually occur? Can I do something about it? When can I do something about it? Who can help me? Who can support me? Is there another way to look at my concern? The reason that I want you to do this is that we use our minds as glorified notebooks and to-do lists. And by writing it out and actually seeing it on paper, it is going to give you some structure. Next to that, you're not allowed to worry the rest of the day. So whenever a worry thought comes up, at night, during the day, doesn't matter. You will tell yourself, oh, no, that's a worry thought. I'm not going to do that now. My time is at 4 p.m. Now, when you close this exercise, I want you to write down a few things that are going well in your life. So that was a lot of information, but the key takeaways. Sleep is one of the most important factors affecting your well-being. So remember to make time and to actually value your sleep. Don't let it be the first thing to cut out when you're in a rush. Sleep is not always perfect, but it's not the end of the world. Remember to be kind about yourself, to yourself about sleep. And if sleep problems actually do persist, then by all means, go see your doctor. Sleep maintenance, stick to your rhythm. So even during the weekends, wake up at the same time every day. And only spend time in bed when you're sleeping. Your bed is only for sleeping, not for playing games, not for watching television, just for sleeping. And acknowledge your feelings and accept them. Observe the feeling from a distance, become aware of your cognitive distortions, and think of other ways to express your thoughts. Work on your thoughts and feelings during the day. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Oh, I hope I know how to do that now. If you have any questions, I've almost... Let me see. Yeah, here we are. So please, if you have any questions, let me know. I see that I went a little bit over time.
No worries, Claire. This was a really fantastic set of information, and I think a lot of new, really interesting insight that you also provided there for, as of course many of us know some of these things, as you said, but it does help to bring from different perspectives, and you did provide, like, I think, fantastic insight. We did get some questions in the chat, and I just want, from the moderating perspective, say that let's spend 5 minutes or so on those. And for those who need to go, as we are a bit over time, we will share the recording of the webinar afterwards, so you can also watch these later. But I think there are so many good questions that let's definitely address some of those, and those of you who can stay online, you're welcome to spend some extra time with us. So first question, asking how does the dark part of the year affect the circadian rhythm?
Oh, well, that's the thing, right? So this circadian rhythm is being reset every day by daylight. That means that when it gets light early, our circadian rhythm is going to be signaled that, hey, day is starting, so I need to go to the bathroom and I need to get some food. Now it's the dark period of the year. Obviously, with you a little darker than with me. I'm in the Netherlands. That means that your body is being signaled to go to the bathroom and to get some food later in the day. In order to kind of prevent that, or overcome that, maybe, because it's simply, the daylight is a way to reset your circadian rhythm. So in order to overcome that, that's why you see these lovely wake-up lights. And well, Philips is one with the wake-up light, but there are a lot of other brands out there as well, which are actually helping you to mimic the daylight in order to make you feel a little fresher, because your body realizes, oh, apparently I thought it was dark, but apparently it isn't. So I must wake up now. So it's actually because it's darker longer, or longer in the morning at least, well, and also in the evening, your body is more inclined to actually go to sleep. And what I see, but this is more personal observation, is people in the Nordics, where it is a little darker than more in the south. They actually have a lovely tendency to withdraw within themselves a little bit more in winter. A lovely period of year to reflect. Obviously, you want to be awake, but it's such a wonderful a period of the year to reflect a little bit and to maybe nurture yourself a little bit, if you're able to kind of give yourself to that.
Thank you. Let's take one question from the private side. I got a few private messages as well. So somebody's asking, until when is the mom brain active regarding sleep? So the fact that you wake up as soon as you hear the kids making sound, and this person's oldest is already 5-year-old, but the moment they wake up, the mom is kind of ready for action, and falling back to sleep is extremely difficult. So any tips there?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I have bad news for you. My oldest is 18. Actually, my oldest slept through the night with 6 weeks. My second, that was the kid that I was referring to, that didn't want to go to sleep at all. The thing is, this is also about perception. So your mom brain is always going to be active because you will always be a mom, right? And we actually know from research that we sense when we are sleeping that someone is looking at us. So it probably gave us some kind of evolutionary advantage. But this is also about perception, where it comes to a point where you need to say, do you know what? Tonight is my night. And I hope you have a partner. So if you have that luxury, then maybe let him or her take care of your kid during that night. Communicate that with each other, because your mom brain is never going to shut off. You will always be worried. I'm now working at my mom's home, and she's actually taking care of me. She's like, isn't the radio too loud and everything? So the mom brain will never shut down. What you can do for yourself is change your perspective on sleep, and that you're the only one that needs to take care of the children at night. And by doing that, you will teach yourself that it's okay to have an entire night's worth of sleep.
Thank you. Let's take one or two more. If we wake up during the sleep, how does it matter which stage of sleep is ongoing for falling back to sleep again?
Okay. Let me see if I can give a comprehensive answer to this one. Because usually you wake up throughout the sleep cycles. So sometimes you might be awake during dreaming a little bit. Sometimes you might be woken up, because that's usually when you're being woken up, when you're in a really deep sleep. It's very hard for your body to come out of that. There's also a sleep disorder that's called night terror. That's actually when you're being woken up during the deep sleep, where you're like, you cannot remember that yourself, but for the people sleeping around you, it's a very scary thing. So it doesn't really matter in the sense of how you perceive your sleep, but it can say something about how rested you feel. So for instance, people who don't even realize that they wake up, but maybe they have sleep apnea, they usually do not realize that they have that, right? But they wake up multiple times during the night, gasping for air, snoring. They snore a lot. They think, no, I slept for 8 hours, but I feel so tired. So usually we cannot really kind of pinpoint it to one sleep phase. I do think, but that's more personal observation. I don't know if this has been researched. I do think that when you tend to wake up in between 2 cycles, that's actually the point where you stay awake the longest. But again, don't pinpoint me to that. Basically, my answer is it doesn't really matter when you wake up. Just really realize that you will wake up on average for 20 times a night. And as long as you cannot remember most of it, you're probably fine.
All right, thank you. And maybe one last comment. Let's take a topic that's quite actually like topical at the moment and a lot of discussed. So regarding sleep and menopause. So is there some tips regarding there? We might not focus on right things when treating insomnia if menopause is actually taking place at the same time.
Yeah. Okay. So this is for people menstruating. Already throughout the period that we're actually menstruating, the cycle is affecting the quality of your sleep. But when we enter perimenopause, so not just menopause is just the pinpoint of your latest menstruation, of your last menstruation. But the perimenopause, what we see is that because of the hormonal fluctuations, your sleep will be affected. Now, on top of that, we get these heat flashes that will keep us up at night as well. Go see your doctor, because very, very often hormone replacement therapy is going to do the trick. I'm not going to say, again, I'm not good as a guru. Nothing is black and white. Unfortunately, there's always nuances, but in general, on average, hormone replacement therapy is going to help you.
All right. Thank you, Claire, so much. We had other questions too, but we are running so out of time that we unfortunately have to call it a day. But I want to give my warmest thank you for this morning's webinar, and thank you everyone for staying with us for some extra time this morning. And from my side, from Auntie side, just a reminder that if you do experience challenges with sleep, the Auntie Sleepless in Seattle package is something that you are most welcome to approach as well for some added guidance and support.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a great rest of the day, and I hope you sleep well during the coming nights with these tips.